At first glance, it looks like there's not much going on in the garden, but let's take a closer look and I'll show you what I have growing. Obviously, the trees have lost all their leaves, but you can see they're beautiful skeletons. Got a lot of maples back here. I think I have an ash and an elm, but their structure is so beautiful. I have to say I enjoy them even in the winter. It's lovely to live in a woodland setting year-round. But let's take a closer look at what's happening. Over here I added a sign. This is where I had my tomato jungle. And right now it's a compost pile. It's a compost in place. So I will probably have to dig down in the spring to find some actual usable soil, but right now all of those wonderful leaves and garden debris are breaking down. But I love my new sign. I put it on a little trellis, and obviously it's settled a bit, so I have to adjust it. But I am excited that this bed is winterized, and there should be lots of nice worm activity under all of that debris. As you can see, my lamb's ear have died back, as they should. We've had a few frosts, and the autumn joy sedum has also died back. But my evergreens are holding strong over the winter, and we haven't had any pounding rains or heavy snow yet, so my miscanthus grass still looks nice, even though it's all browned out, or yellowed out, I should say. This I'll cut down in late winter, but for now it's a nice habitat for the animals, and I think it looks pretty still. We've got a bit of a breeze going here. We always enjoy this wind sculpture year-round, and I look out and it really does give me a good idea about how windy the day is and how I should dress. And let's go up here. It's quiet. We just had a pea soup fog lift, and that means there's not a lot of yard work going on. It's been every day we've had leaf blowers going, so it's been kind of quiet so far with this dreary weather. But we've got my leek bottoms growing there, and they're making some nice fresh leaves. And in this bed, I have my winter crops. I have broccoli. This is called Lieutenant broccoli. I think it's a large broccoli. And then I grew these from seed. They look a little touched by frost here. But these are purple sprouting broccoli in front. So I have a couple of those, and then I have the Lieutenant broccoli in the back. And then I'm not sure what's going to happen with these. These are seed grown. It's hard to see them against the backdrop of leaves, but that is red orac, and that's supposed to be a green, and it keeps putting out these flowers and seeds. So I'm not sure as it's going to seed if it's going to be much of a crop for leaves. You're supposed to eat the leaves like spinach. It's supposed to be very frost hardy, so we'll see what happens with those. If they go to seed, then I'll be out of luck. But it's interesting to try new things. This is a gift from my friend Lori, and it is a solar, it's got a solar light in it, and it looks like water coming out of this little watering can. It's so cute. I love it. It's just the kind of thing I love to have in my garden. And if you see some pots in my beds here, these are just filled with crocus bulbs if the squirrels haven't gotten them. I'm hoping they haven't. These were the green onion bottoms that I planted, and they look like they've taken really well. So hopefully those will bunch up and spread underneath. And I've got a little bit of winter sowing here. These were some grass seeds I got from my sister's ornamental grasses. One of them's called Undaunted Muley Grass, and the other one is a pink muley grass. So we'll see if those amount to anything in the spring. I just peeked in yesterday and there's nothing to show. Not yet, at least. And this bed is a little more sparse. I do have some cabbages that will take off more in the spring, But as you can see in the middle, there's some new growth. And these are the Michili cabbages. They're kind of a soft-leaved cabbage, and I really like them. I think they're an Asian cabbage, but they're very delicious. And I have some rutabagas down here, so I'm not sure what's going on underneath, but in a couple months I'll come along and see if they're bulbing out. But they're getting a little buried in the leaves, but I think that's okay. When it gets cold, I think the plants really appreciate it. And this one looks a little different. This is also supposed to be a rutabaga, but as you can see, these are blue leaves. So I'm not sure what this is. If it'll turn out to be a different type of rutabaga, we'll have to see. But that's what's going on out here. You do have to look closely at this time of year to find things growing. This is the time of year when you always appreciate your evergreen plants. And these 3 little boxwoods were planted probably 3 years ago as tiny little cuttings. So I'm delighted that they've turned into these little globes. They're just looking really nice. And I think they do best in the fall and spring, and that's when they like to grow a little bit. Of course, you know, we had a hot, dry summer. So they are looking good. And I'm always so grateful that I have some evergreen interest in the garden. But they're all looking good. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see these, but these are red twig dogwoods, and they're starting to look like actual shrubs. I do love how they look with the chartreuse green bench. But if you look closely, you can see how red these are. They're absolutely gorgeous. A lot of people would use them in arrangements, but I think they're so pretty, and they're all along here. And like I said, they're a little bit hard to see, but they are finally looking like something. I stuck them in as twigs and they rooted right in place. Here's kind of a good view where you can see the red twigs growing up. So I'm really delighted to have a little hedge of those. One thing that looks very prolific is the shelf fungus on this old log that makes up one side of my rustic garden bed. Quite beautiful. I like to look at it close up, but it's really beautiful. And of course that fungus is eating up the log, so I'll be looking for another log in a year or two, but in the meantime I just think that's really gorgeous. And I want to zoom in over here and show you this log has a different type, and it's equally as beautiful. So I think that is so interesting. I find that just beautiful. And behind it I have my carex, and something is eating it. It's supposed to be rabbit and deer proof. We have a high fence, so we will not be getting deer back here, but something is coming along, so I don't know whether it's the rabbits or the birds. And I haven't actually seen a lot of rabbits since we had a cat move in the neighborhood. But as you can see, the rustic garden bed is mostly asleep. My horseradish is still green, but it's all flopped over. It will be completely dying back, I think, once we get some snow. I did plant some collard plants back here, and that'll be a nice green to have over the winter and early spring. But those are doing well. I pretty much do nothing with them. But they're such a pretty plant too, a little bit prehistoric looking. They get very large leaves when they're more mature, and they're very cold hardy too. So here's something we can say is growing in December. I moved my penstemon back here and it hasn't quite died back yet. So it is a hardy perennial, and I'm not sure if it completely dies back in the winter or not. This is my first winter with them, but we'll see. But I think they'll be really pretty back here along the fence, and certainly bring a lot of pollinators when they bloom next year. If you look very, very closely in this leaf debris, you can see little tiny sprouts with very narrow leaves, and those are carrots. So it's been quite dry here until yesterday, but now it seems like some of these carrot seeds might have sprouted. So I have a chance at some carrots. We'll see. The whole interior of the planter looks empty, but maybe something will sprout up. And here's a view of the back of the house. You can see it's still quite foggy. A pea soup day for sure, but it is very peaceful out back here. This Dusty Miller is proving to be quite frost-proof. This is its actual color. It looks like it's covered with frost, but it's not. This is how it's supposed to look. And I'm kind of amazed that after some of our nights down in the 20s, it still looks so good. Might be a little bit hard to see, but my pink muley grass still looks so pretty. Look at how delicate these fronds are. They're practically invisible. They're very ethereal. It looks like they're covered with seed. So I'm wondering if they'll drop any seed here. But that was the muley grass that I split into 3 sections, and all of the grasses took. Not all of them look as good. That's one there. And there's another one in the back. And I've got lots of growth over here, guys, in my garlic tub. So I'm expecting to get garlic next year. I think all that green will probably die back, but it's protected from the birds and squirrels. They like to dig in open containers. And this looks pretty. Look how pretty that looks. That is my Japanese red maple. And that's a beautiful one. And it's got a little mondo grass around it, and that was totally covered by marigolds all summer, so I guess it was protected. But I also have a ring around it just to protect it from our rabbit friends. They like to eat tender new branches. But isn't that beautiful, guys? I love how that looks. I love red stems in the winter. Looks like my baby boxwoods along the edge had some new growth, but now it's being nipped by the frost at night. So I'm not sure if that new growth will survive, but it's nice to know that it's growing and it's happy there. But that's going to be a nice edge of boxwood there. And add a little bit of a formal touch to my triangle garden. And the last thing I'll show you is another pot of collard greens. These collard greens, by the way, were mature plants that I bought in the fall from Home Depot. And sometimes in the fall, it's a really good idea to get plant starts because they're able to handle the winter better. But that pot's doing really well. So a lot of things have died back for the winter and gone to sleep. And they'll reawaken in the spring. But if you look closely, there's still a lot to see. So thanks for joining me on this pea soup of a morning. And I think the birds are getting a little annoyed with me. I'm interrupting their feeding time.